This is our first ever online user group. We would love to be seeing you all in person in your various locations, but for now, this will be the best way that we can reach out and hear from you, and for you hopefully to learn a couple things as well. We've got a really busy agenda today, and so what we're hoping to cover is, I'm going to at the top here just show you real quickly a couple of new solutions we have from Ideate Software. Spend no more than 10 minutes on that. Then I'm going to switch it over to my colleague Richard, who is going to give us an update on the release of StyleManager, then on to a very robust release of Sticky. We'll hear from Sash on that. And then we're excited we have two brave individuals who have volunteered to kind of share their tips. And I know that's really what a lot of you are hoping to hear today. So we're going to try to make a lot of room for that. And then at the back end, we'll have just an open session where we can hear from any questions that you may have. So for what's new, real quickly, we have two new solutions that we just want to make you aware of today. The first I'm going to talk about is called Ideate Dashboard for BIM 360, and then Ideate Automation. We would love to have your questions about that either today or later if you want to reach out to us. So first, an overview of the dashboard solution. This is like a KPI card that's available within the BIM 360 environment. So if you own Ideate Dashboard, you can set up these, what they're called partner cards, and the data that's displaying within these partner cards is the warnings data within your project or set of projects. So what I'm showing on my screen right now is just an example within a project in BIM 360. And I have two cards set up. And what's interesting is that these cards actually are reporting on other projects that are in different BIM 360 projects. So on the left-hand side, for example, I'm showing a medical office building. It's a 2018 project, and I'm showing data about 3 different Revit files and the warnings within those 3 different files in that project. And then on the right-hand side, in the same environment, I'm looking at data from a completely different project. So it's an interesting thing that you can actually do within the BIM 360 environment is you set up, we just call them aggregator projects. You basically set up kind of a dummy BIM 360 project, and you can set up these cards to look at different projects. And the data that we're showing is the warnings related data. For those of you who are familiar with Explorer, the color coding correlates to the color coding that's in the Explorer side. So typically that implies that the red ones are the ones that you've identified as being the most critical to resolve, yellow being kind of medium, and then green meaning important but not life-threatening. The red line that you're seeing in the dashboard cards here is the threshold. And the threshold is a value, again, we're setting that within the Explorer context, that by default is 1 warning per megabyte of file size. So what you're seeing is that threshold line as the red dash line, and then any projects that are exceeding that based on the file size. So you could have a very small file with a lot of warnings, and that's going to really kind of pop here visually. And it's also letting you compare projects to each other and to other projects, so Revit project files. So it's a very helpful metric. It's a great way to get some really quick insight into your projects without, looking at Revit. And this data is refreshed as you're publishing new projects. So that's what the Ideate Dashboard project solution is about. And then the other new solution that we've developed is called Ideate Automation, and it is a tool maybe a little bit like Dynamo where you can drive programmatically our solutions. And the first solution that we're really supporting is BIMlink. So what Ideate Automation means right now is that you can drive BIMlink in the background or even schedule it as a task that maybe runs in the evening. So the basic idea here is that you launch this solution. It's called Ideate Automation Q, and I'm showing it here. And it'll provide, there are different scripts that are provided. So this one's called IBL, which is BIMlink export, and you can specify the variables. So in this particular script, there's opportunities to select a file. In some cases, it's multiple files. You can identify the links from BIMlink that you want to use, and then they control sort of where the results are going to be run. So you specify that information as a task, and then you can run that right then, or you can, as I said, you can schedule that to run in the background. And this is just an example of a task that I've set up that I have running every week. So every week I have a task that goes to a particular BIM 360 project. You can see it here. It actually creates a folder with the export date name, and then it's going to put into that folder the Excel file content that I've set up as part of that task automation. So we have a lot of customers who are just beginning to dive into this. We're getting a lot of great feedback, and we're really looking for sort of what are the things that you would like to automate with our software. So again, type those questions in if you have them, and let us know. So I hope we can figure out how to, where to take this for our next iteration of Ideate Automation. So with that, oh, and this is just to remind me, these are just some of the original ways that our customers have told us that they want to use automation. So, if you want to do detailed quantity takeoffs, you can run those in the background. If you need to export revision sheet issuance records and you don't want to sit there and open up all the files, that's just something that you can be having running in the background as a process. Or data drops or health check is kind of the most common example of why people are interested in using Ideate Automation right now. All right, and so before I turn this over to my colleague Richard, I do want to do another poll here. And here we'd like your input, just also to make sure you're all still awake, on sort of how you approach at your company the task of auditing a Revit project. This is something that we've certainly talked to a lot of our customers about, and we realize that there's sort of the ideal, what you'd love to do, and what you're actually able to accomplish. So I think it'd be fun for us all to kind of share our realities in that, with respect to that. So I'm gonna wait just a second longer to see if I can get everybody to vote here. Looks like we're getting close. All right, we'll go ahead and close the poll here in a second. Excellent. All right, so then here's the results. And I shouldn't have written at random. I suppose the generous way to put that would be more sort of on demand, right? We're doing it when we feel it's appropriate. But it's really nice to see that some people are doing that on a weekly basis. I do feel like that's a really important task on some level, to stay ahead of the problems related to certain kinds of issues, like warnings in particular is one that we've spent a lot of time looking at. All right, and with that, Richard, I'm going to turn it over to you.
All right, can you just make me presenter?
Only if you say pretty please. Yeah, let me see if I can do that. There you go.
Okay. Oh, excellent. Let's see. Share screen monitor. And okay, good. So Ideate StyleManager. So this was a great follow-up to the poll question about auditing. And most of you know that we have a product called Ideate Explorer that's been around for quite a few years. And typically it's our sort of auditing tool. But over the years, people have said that, well, I can find lots of instance data in the project, but I'm having trouble. Like maybe I found these CAD imports, I was able to remove the CAD imports, but all of a sudden there's object styles and there's line styles that have kind of got infected, if you want to call that, into my project, and I have a hard time removing those. So that was one of the reasons we developed Ideate StyleManager a year ago, was to give you the tools to be able to review all of those styles that are not consistent. So as I mentioned, imports are a real threat in the sense of bringing in object styles and line styles and patterns that don't match your standards. You could copy in information from another project. You can bring in family files, content that has, again, certain object styles loaded that are not matching your standards. So how do you manage all of these things? And that's really where Ideate Style Manager comes into play. So the first thing that is most important is to understand what styles you have in your project, right? And where they're being used. So Ideate Style Manager allows you to analyze and understand where each individual style is being used. Like in this case, I can see imports and family. They're used in these particular families. So it gives me the knowledge to understand exactly what I'm doing. If I'm deleting something or merging, I know that I'm not impacting the deliverables in a negative way. And of course, once those styles maybe that don't match my standards, I need to merge them to an approved style, right? So now I have the ability to merge items, whether it's line styles or line patterns and so forth, and be able to start to manage this information and really create a very clean, robust Revit model. And then finally, if styles aren't used, or maybe I'm merging them into other styles, I can then delete. And I can delete with confidence, knowing that I'm not impacting information or sort of deliverables downstream. Because I can go into the object styles within Revit, and I can just willy-nilly delete things, but I have no idea what the impact of that is on my actual drawings and deliverables. So this is really important to know that, let's say, these things are not used in the project. And like I said, we introduced StyleManager in about a year ago in our, I think it was April, May timeframe. And so just about 2 weeks ago, we introduced a new update to Ideate StyleManager. And these updates are coming directly from you, our customers, asking us to handle more types of styles for auditing and for reviewing in the project. So we've added now new tools within Ideate Style Manager for filled regions, for viewports, for text, for fonts, which are different than text, dimensions, and arrowheads. So we're really excited. And of course, we've added some other features as well. So the biggest feature, I think, is improvement. Performance improvement is always important for everyone when you're analyzing, where these items are being used within your project. And I won't go through all the other details, but you can see we've added a lot of information. I think one thing that's kind of interesting is that we have now support for French, Spanish, and Japanese languages. So you'll see there on the screen is I switched my Revit to run Japanese, and now Ideate Style Manager is reflecting that within Japanese. And I think as we move forward in the future years, you're going to see more and more of this localization with all of our products. So we are a global company. We have customers all around the world. So it's important that we're supporting those customers that don't speak English as their primary language. So why don't we just look at this and just take a real quick spin on some of the new features. So I'm going to switch over here to Revit. And this is Revit 2020. Yes.
There was a question I thought would be nice for you to answer out loud before you dig in here, which is which versions of Revit will these updates be available for?
Oh, that is a great question. So right now I'm using Revit 2021, but we're always supporting the last 4 releases of Revit. So as I mentioned, 2 weeks ago, we made these updates to StyleManager. They are updated on 2018, 19, 20, and 21. So great question. So as everyone probably knows, all of the Ideate software tools are accessible through the Ideate software ribbon panel, right? And so now when I select on Ideate Style Manager, this new larger Style Manager dialog comes into play. And I wanted you to notice that if I do resize this, I get these really cool like blue arrows on either side. So then since I have more tools available, I can scroll back and forth the tools if I don't want to have the dialog be so large, right? So let's just go to one of the new collections that we're calling this, or new tools called text. And so right away, what I want to do is isolate duplicates. And you'll see that I have 2 text styles that are showing in red that are identified as duplicated. So the first thing I want to do is know where are these used. So I'm going to double click to analyze and do another double click, or I could do, you'll see shift select. And right away, I see that, wow, one is in use and one looks like the style was copied and never actually in use. Now, one of the lovely thing I really enjoy about the new features of Ideate StyleManager is you'll notice that we're giving you more information over here in the panel, the right panel, which is actually the style, the name, the what text font is Arial, the text size, and so forth. But I can go to this little pencil and actually go right to the editing properties, the type properties, and see more information. So that's available on any one of these collections right now. It's like I go to the little pencil and I can go actually edit the type. So I think that's just so nice. And that's a good point to tell you that Ideate StyleManager is non-modal, meaning that we can, just like Ideate Explorer and Quick Select and many of our other applications, you can work in Revit and do things while that dialog is open. But right now, I know that I can delete this 1/16 Arial for detailing. I can delete it with confidence, knowing that I'm not impacting anything within my model. So let's then untick that isolate duplicates. And then you saw I was able to double click to analyze. I'm going to do a shift select and analyze because in this case, I don't have a huge amount of fonts, or I'm sorry, text. So it's not going to take that long to analyze. So now what it's doing is it's actually going out. I've got 14 text styles within this project, and it's analyzing where those are used everywhere within the project. All right. And then I can start to make some decisions based on that. So the first thing I might want to do is organize them based on their how many usages in the project. So I can do that by coming over here to the number at the top of the column and just hitting and organizing them from least to the greatest. Or if I do it again, it's greatest to least. So you can do the same thing with the name. You can organize it by name, but I love doing this right here at the top of the column where I get everything sort of organized the way that I want. And I see that this, DG notes here has quite a few usages. The same way with this one has lots of text elements. And by the way, if I want to review that, I can actually click over here and say show, and it's going to open up that view that has that particular element. And then I can say, you know what, let's go and review where that information is. And you can see there's that recessed walk off mat if I want to review the text first before I make changes. But in this case, I've got this weird schedule text 1, schedule text 13. It's kind of a strange text size, 5/64. So I don't like that. I want everything to be 1/8. So what I'm going to do now is merge all of that schedule text 1. I'm going to search for schedules, schedule text 13, and merge those two together. Then after I do that, I realize that, oh, it's given me this great synopsis of what it actually did and changed. That's perfect. Now we're going to go and say, all right, that schedule text 13, let's rename that. We're just going to call that schedule text and apply it. So you can see here, I can rename types very easily. I can analyze, I can merge, and I can delete with confidence, knowing exactly the impact that I'm making to the model. And so it's just really nice, as getting back to like what we talked about with the auditing, just to really understand all of these different usages within your project and making sure that you have the cleanest and most efficient Revit model possible. So I'm going to switch back over here. And I think we have another poll slide to start with, don't we, Glennis?
Hey, Richard. Actually, we don't. We started with a poll slide for StyleManager, but before you jump in, I did want to share a question which I thought would be good. Maybe you can just touch on it a little bit as you're doing your demo or at the end of your demo, which is about text and does it dig into the annotation families? And so I gave everybody an answer in the text in the chat about the fonts and the difference between text and font, but you might want to just show that a little bit.
All right. Well, I know you did the video there, Glennis. You want to? You're probably the most familiar with that. Let me see what you wrote. Make sure that I.
Why don't you go through your demo, and I'll just talk to it just at the end then.
All right. So you see here again, this is text, but then there are fonts. Well, in fact, actually, you can see that the text will actually have as a component the font that's being used to the text style. So in this case, now I'm sort of analyzing these schedules here. I didn't mean to actually select that, but obviously that came up. So it is, again, the font is a subcomponent of the text itself. So I just wanted to say, like, when you do like this, notice that this schedule text is the name of the style, but it contains the font called Arial. Now over here in fonts, right, then we have the different Arial fonts. And you'll notice here that I also have the ability to analyze options for annotation, for model families, and schedules. So when I want to review that, that's why if I expand on this, there's this little question mark, because it means that not everything has been analyzed. It's just done a kind of cursory first pass on the fonts that are used. But if you want to dig into annotation families, you can do that by selecting this and then analyze. And again, I don't know, hopefully I might have actually taken a little bit of time there. But any additional information you wanted to talk about, Glennis?
No, I think that's good, and we should probably move on. It looks like Eric got his question answered. He said, this is the magic text and fonts. And yeah, it is. It's definitely took us a while to kind of sort out how we wanted to approach that. But the bottom line is that text types, when you define them in a family, which actually not many families actually even support that, like title blocks do, for example. But whatever you define as a type in that family does not actually percolate through to the project itself. So it's not that meaningful to actually do it for text types, but we know that you care about the visual quality. So fonts, for that reason, just made more sense for us. But we should probably pivot over to our next poll, I think.
That's still processing a little bit. So like I said, sometimes if you do have a lot of annotations or sort of sub information, like even line styles and schedules, that's now something that you can drill down to and analyze more.
All right. I think we're going to pivot here and do our next poll before we turn it over to Sash. It's okay if you don't know the answer to this, because Sash is actually going to hopefully tackle this question. But if you do have an opinion, we would love to hear about it. So I'll give a few more seconds for everybody to vote, and then we'll turn it over to Sash. Okay, it looks like we've got almost everybody who's voted. So I'll go ahead and close the poll here. And I'll go ahead and share it back out. And we have a few people saying they prefer images, and most people are still more comfortable with schedules. So hopefully if there's any questions about the difference between those two, we'll cover it here next. Thanks, Sash.
You got it. Thank you, guys. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and make myself actually, one of you is going to have to make me the presenter.
I did.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then let's share the screen. And I'm going to move you guys out of the way here for now. All right, so you should be able to see my screen right now. So I'm going to just briefly talk about Ideate Sticky here for those of you that are not familiar with the product. So what Ideate Sticky allows you to do is live link your Word, Excel, and PDF files into your Revit model data as live links to those source files. So if you are working on specification information, or you're doing some scheduling type information that may require one of these products, where maybe it's a little above and beyond the capabilities of Revit, then consider looking at Ideate Sticky to help you with these tasks. One of the things I do want to point out to folks is not only just with Excel, but we also have the Word and PDF options that can come in as images. So, this works really well for folks that have real specialized scheduling or real specialized graphics that maybe a Revit schedule header cannot possibly render. So if you are working on really complicated, interior finish schedulings, or you're working on, we still have a lot of folks that are doing like their panel scheduling in Excel just because of the capabilities of that, consider using the images for that reason right there. Also, just wanted to point out to you some of the benefits of using Sticky. Number one is, all the source information still remains in the Word, PDF, or Excel files. So the nice thing is, if you have, let's say, architects or interior designers or engineers that don't work in Revit but are managing the data inside of here, they can go ahead and continue to manage that information. And then again, that information just gets updated in the Revit model, either through an auto update or through you just manually going into the Sticky dialog box to update those files when they're out of date. I used to do this a long time ago. I used to do simulated data entry. trying to fake key schedule data and try to build my own tables, going crazy, picking a category that nobody really uses in Revit. It was a giant nightmare. Or you're going into a drafting view and you're drawing your own kind of borders and putting it in your own text. None of that needs to be done anymore. The other great thing about this is you can take a sticky, and I really actually like to do this for my starting views, where I kind of have a master sticky in my starting view that maybe works office wide. So maybe I have 1 or 2 people managing a group of stickies that I can publish to all of my Revit models. So when people come in the next day, they open up their local copies of their files, they get the updated stickies, they see the latest and greatest information that maybe the BIM manager has posted. So it's another nice way to kind of take these stickies and link them into multiple Revit files if you want to go that route, so that the information is updated. So what I'm going to do real briefly here is I'm going to just use Excel as the base of today's demo, but I just want to show you a little of the differences between the scheduling portion of sticky and images using Excel. So I'm going to come over here to my Revit model, and all I'm going to do here, just to keep it simple, is make a new sheet. And I'm just going to come over here and do so. All right, and so once that sheet comes up here, I'm going to go to the Ideate Software tab. So here we go, and I'll launch Sticky. So for those of you that haven't updated Sticky in quite a while, be sure to do that, because you'll see we have 2 tabs here, one for schedules and one for images. So we did definitely break up the dialog box to keep it very clear as to what is what. And you also may notice down here there's been some changes here. We're giving you a lot more information about each of the stickies, like what its work sharing status is, what page it's located on, and also its location. So I'm going to come over here real quickly and go to create, and I'm going to pick my source file, and I copied our sample data over to my local D drive here. So I'll just pull that up, and I'm going to use this Philips lighting spec, because it's kind of got images in there and multiple worksheets as well. And I'm just going to keep things simple by picking the first worksheet out of here, and we're going to use the print area. And so when I do that, what we're doing is we're bringing it in, we're interpreting that data and creating it as a schedule header. And you can see right here, there it is, and I'll just kind of move it out of the way. So in a situation like this, where we really just have text and borders and images, no problem, handling that kind of information. And the nice thing about it too is when I come over here to my schedules column, you can see that it actually shows up over here. And if I double click on this to go to that schedule, you'll notice that it's located here. Now, any sort of changes that you want to make to this sticky should be done back in the authoring software. So in this case, Excel. You can certainly change text in here, but we're going to warn you that it was changed here, and that any changes will be overwritten once you go back into sticky to refresh them. So always go back to the authoring software to make those changes. And you'll notice over here that it was done in the header. Now, something about the header that you're probably all aware of is, yes, you can do things like shading and borders, and you can change the font for sentences, not for individual words, but beyond that, you have some limited capabilities. So what if your stickies are a little bit more complicated than that? Well, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open up that Philips lighting spec, so it should appear here on your screen in just a moment. And this is what we're looking at, is this exact sticky right here. And just to see changes, I'll go ahead and add I'll make the change here and make it red. But I'm going to do something else that you probably wouldn't do, but I just want to show you how this kind of works with sticky. I'm just going to grab some smart art from Excel. Why not? And I'm just going to grab this and just kind of put it over here and maybe just resize it. Again, you're probably not going to use smart art in your Excel files, but I just want to show you what the difference is between using sticky as images versus schedule. So here I just made some changes here. I went ahead and did that. And then while I'm also at it, let's just go ahead and draw an arrow, because sometimes I've done this myself. I've come in here and wanted to draw some arrows to point to things, right? And so I'll make that big so it's really obvious. All right, I'm going to save this file, and I'm going to come back to Revit. And when I come back to Sticky, you'll notice right here it says add a date, and I don't have auto update turned on right now, which is fine, but I'm just going to go ahead and click the update button. And by the way, as I mentioned before, you can see all the information about that Sticky's location, its status, its work sharing, and so forth. I'll go ahead and update it. And when I'm done, you'll notice that only the red text changed, right? Or the text changed red. But you'll notice that the smart art and the arrow didn't show up. And again, the reason why that is because when I come over here to my modify schedule, that kind of information is not supported in a header, in the header of a schedule. Again, I'm not saying that most of our industry is going to do things like smart art and arrows, but in case you have some of that, that's maybe when you want to consider using images. So if I come over to Sticky and I come over to the Word, PDF, and Excel as images, I'm going to go to Create. I'm going to go find that same Excel file this time. So let me just go ahead and bring up that sample. So this is Philips lighting spec. So we're going to go to that same exact Excel file. And the dialogue's a little different here because we'll list kind of each one of the tabs and then the various methods of bringing in snapshots of that schedule, whether it's done as a print area or a named region or so forth. And immediately when I click on it, you'll see in this preview, it very much looks like a page setup, right? And that's exactly what we're doing, is we're looking at it from a different perspective. And so we're rendering these things very differently than how we do them as a schedule. And so when I bring that in, because there's already information in the title block, we put it on the outside. But I wanted to point out to you that no matter what you do in that file, it's going to render as it's seen. So basically, it's a WYSIWYG situation here. You know, what you see is what you get, versus you mostly get what you want out of this. But if you have something real specialized, it will be a little different. Also want to point out just a little bit of the differences in the sizes. You know, this is based on a page setup, where this is based on a print area. So there's definitely some differences in those settings. So again, this is going to be probably more so 100%, or we'll call it 99%, accurate in terms of its setup, where this is going to be a little bit more simulated and very close. But you can clearly see the differences between the two. So the same thing goes for Word and PDF. We don't do Word as a schedule because Word has a lot of different formatting challenges. But if we do them as images, we can get around a lot of those challenges. So again, it's really up to you as to which method you pick. And so definitely test out both methods and pick one that works well. One last thing I want to leave you with, one of the nice things about doing these, as schedules, especially when applicable, is that if you are using, let's say, Ideate spell check as an example, you can spell check those words, right? If it comes in as an image, it's not possible to spell check it because at this point they become rasterized. All right, Glennis, I'm going to pass it back to you unless there's some questions I can answer right now.
Yeah, I think it's good on timing. We should probably move on and make sure we handle our illustrious presenters. I'm really excited to get to these, and we can maybe field some of the, I know there were some good sticky questions, but let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here.
Perfect.
And we have as our first one of two speakers that have volunteered bravely to present today. We have Bob Bell, and I'm actually going to try to unmute you, Bob. I'm just realizing that means I need to figure out where you are in here. So I need to know whether you're a B or a, let's see, it's probably R, huh? Yeah, I'm looking at the long list here. Richard, I don't know, maybe you can help me find Bob Bell. I should have actually looked through the list.
Oh, I was actually muted. He's unmuted now.
Oh, okay, fabulous. Hey, Bob.
Hi.
Bob is graciously joining us today, and as many of you probably know Bob, he is part of the digital practice community at Stantec and is the BIM manager there. And if you want to introduce the problem and yourself a little bit as well, then I can roll the video that you provided.
Sure, absolutely. So I manage multiple BIM projects across many of our offices at Stantec, and one of the common issues that we run into is people just continue to do sheet setup the same old way. But in particular, on the electrical and MEP side of things, we do a lot of dependent views on buildings where the building is larger than the sheet. And we use dependent views because they're very easy to work from an MEP perspective. And built-in Revit does have some tools to allow you to sort of quickly create dependent views for multiple disciplines, but it's not smooth. And then there comes the issue of even just getting them onto sheets. I used to use BIMLink to help me manage that, but then we have some great tools under StyleManager, or not StyleManager, Ideate apps that is great. So go ahead and roll the video.
Right. All right. Thank you.
The electrical discipline model typically has many subdiscipline views. When working with a large building that needs to be split across multiple sheets, it is common to use dependent views for the normal scale partial plans. Here is my sophisticated building that needs to be split across multiple sheets. I have already created one set of dependent views, named as desired, and assigned scope boxes to each of the dependent views. At this point, you could use Revit's Apply Dependent Views tool to create a set of dependent views. Selecting the views is a little bit tedious, however, since the dialog box doesn't allow for multiple selection mode. The resulting views, however, will need to be renamed and have the appropriate scope box applied to them. One of my favorite tools for dealing with this issue is to use BIMlink. You can see that I already have a link set up for dealing with this very issue. BIMlink can make short work of fixing that issue by using Excel to search and replace the view names and add the correct scope boxes. But Ideate Software has a tool called View Creator that you can use to quickly create the dependent views and the appropriate scope boxes in one action. There are several methods and rules that are available straight out of the box, but picking the dependent view and then selecting your existing dependent views is very easy. Hit the next button and then you begin selecting the views that you want to apply those dependent views to. Here you can see that I'm removing a diagram view. And then removing the original views that already had dependent views. See how simple and fast that was? View Creator has created the dependent views with the appropriate names, and not only that, but assigned the scope boxes automatically to those dependent views.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's go ahead and share my screen again. All right, thanks, Bob. Really great to hear from somebody other than us about how you're using our software. I know Bob over the years has been a real help to us as part of our beta program and given us a lot of great feedback on how to make some of these tools better. We're grateful to have you. We also have, as a volunteer today, a Yong Tang, who is from DES Architects and Engineers. And Jan, I'm going to go ahead and you can unmute yourself and introduce yourself if you'd like.
Oh,
hi, Yong.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. I'm a structural engineer at DES. I've been working with the company for 17 years now. So we deal mainly with campus buildings, office, steel buildings, large buildings for developers, as well as for life science projects. So let's start.
Okay.
Okay, so today's topic is about RAM to Revit and how I just discovered for myself a workflow enhancement that I've been searching for quite a while. So next slide, please. So let me go over the agenda. I will start with the motivation, why, the design process overview, and a quick recap. Next slide, please. So in our office, we use RAM for the design of our structural steel building. And here's a snapshot from the RAM software that we use, which give the beam sizes, stud counts, and beam cambers. These three properties are what we use for as engineers and what we need to produce in our production drawings. Next slide, please. So in our current workflow, from RAM result output, the engineers mark up revisions in beam sizes, stud counts, cambers for drafters. And the drafters will transfer the markups to Revit manually, and the engineers will have to go back to back check for error due to re-entry. Next slide, please. So as you can see, the process is pretty tedious and time consuming. We are not able to provide quick turnaround, error prone from data re-entry. And notice the amount of red marks that I have to transfer from one floor to the next. And if we are talking about multiple floors, we are talking about a lot of time and a lot of iterations as well. So I need to find a better way to doing this. So next slide, please. So how can we improve? So my objective is to efficiently transfer the markup from RAM results to Revit. And what was I trying to accomplish? Well, obviously time saving, because the task is too tedious and too boring. And number two, quality control to ensure accuracy in our work. And what are the things that we typically change as design evolve? Only three things: beam sizes, beam cambers, stud counts. So next slide, please. So I'm going to take you through my workflow process. One, I go to RAM, which is the engineering software. I extract the RAM data and I export it to spreadsheet. Two, I go back to Revit, go to the beam link, and I use a modified version of the structural framing swap link and export to spreadsheet. And then I map these two spreadsheets and get what I want. So next slide, please. So let's go over a simple test model. From this model, we export the design result to a spreadsheet. Next slide, please. So this slide shows the exported spreadsheet from RAM, which has the design information that I need. Notice that on column B, it has a unique ID to tag the beams, and it has beam sizes, cambers, and stud counts that I was looking for. So we'll come back to this later. Next slide, please. Now let's go to Revit, and I'm going to go to the beam link, and I go to the default structural framing swap link, and I rename the link as structural framing RAM. From here, I will make modifications to the properties. Next slide, please. So what's the difference? Well, I have customized the link to include the RAM unique ID, and then on the right, the camber size and the number of studs. And I have changed what was in the default setting as the survey coordinates to internal coordinates. So next slide, please. So in this slide, I'm showing three worksheets. The first worksheet is the export from beam link. The second is a working copy. And the third is an export from RAM. So in order for me to map the information from one worksheet to another, I need to concatenate the reference level, which is on column D, and the internal coordinates, which is E, F, G, and H, to generate a unique ID. So with this ID that I've generated myself, I can use the VLOOKUP function to look up the corresponding RAM unique ID, as well as the beam sizes and stud counts from the RAM worksheet. Next slide, please. So my next step here is to copy the information from the working worksheet and paste it to the original worksheet from beam link. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go ahead and import it back to BIM link, and the information is pushed back to Revit. Notice that I have successfully made the change, and I have added a tag for RAM ID. So tag the beam, change the beam sizes, change the camber and start counts, all within this BIM link environment. Next slide, please. So in summary, we export the result from RAM. We extract the information from RAM and put it to a spreadsheet. Same thing, we go to Revit, we go to the BIM link, we export the BIM shop link to spreadsheet, and we link it up. And by doing so, it saves us lots of time. I hope this information is helpful and beneficial to your workflow. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have creative ways to improve this process. I'm most interested to explore new ideas. Thank you.
Yong and I had the opportunity to kind of look at this workflow recently together through our support, and I would encourage everybody to make active use of our support team. All of us on this call are involved in support. It's how we make improvements to the software, is that we really are fascinated and eager to learn about how you can use data within your disciplines and the unique projects that you have. We're very anxious to learn about that so that we can make improvements. So I want to thank you for sharing that with everybody today. Richard, do we have some questions we want to field now?
Well, I think some of the questions just were back on Ideate Sticky, and there was several questions about working with the desktop, or working with Ideate BIM, or Ideate BIM 360, Autodesk BIM 360, via the Autodesk desktop connector. So the answer is yes, we can store information on the via the Autodesk desktop connector via BIM 360, and we can extract information. I sent a link in the question panel that has more specific details about that. And so, exactly what is cached and what is not cached when it comes to those images. But there were some questions about that. So I think the best thing is for people to review that support link that I included there on using those two together.
Great.
And I think, most of the other questions were very specific that I tried to answer each one. So that was probably the one that was most relevant for the entire group.
Okay. Excellent. Well, I'll go ahead and turn this over to you now, Sash.
All right, sounds great. Yes, so do you want me to go ahead and share my screen here, Glynis?
Absolutely.
All right, yeah, let's do that. So let's see, make me the presenter, and I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so for those of you that have not submitted feature requests before, or are even wondering, how to update your software, I just wanted to point you out to a couple of locations. Number one is on our website. We have both update checks there and also ways for you to submit feature requests. Also in product as well. And so, next to all of our software products, you'll see the little question mark and then the little arrow that's right next to it. And there's where you can check for updates and also do your feature requests. If I come over to our website, I just have a couple tabs open here. Under the support, no matter what product you pick, when you go over to like the help files, you'll end up basically on a screen that's very similar to what you're seeing right here. And in this case, you can see that this one's for BIM link, but we have, email support. And here's where you could submit a feature request or issue a request, for Ideate Software. So we get all of these through our support side of things. And I do want to let you know that we do look at every single feature request and support request. We log all this information in our system. So it doesn't go in some black hole that never gets answered or never gets addressed, we do log everything. As Glennis mentioned, we like to hear about people's workflows. All of us are on support. And when we see people asking, interesting questions like, how do I get this RAM data into my Revit models? Well, we want to see this and we want to work with you so we can understand how we can improve our products and also help you with those workflows. So be sure to check out, any of the support pages, especially if it's product specific for information, but also on how to get a hold of us. Also, just to let you know, in terms of software updates, as I showed you before, you can go to a little check for updates, and just real quickly, if I do show you that, I'll pick any one of these programs. And since we did StyleManager today as a brief demo, I'm talking about this little arrow right here. I think we're pretty familiar with it because it also exists in Revit. And here's your check for updates. When I check for updates, we tell you what your current build is and what the release date is. So if you're like, I think I updated my software back in March of last year, you're very well out of date. So you can then go, check for website for updates. So be sure to check that out if there's any doubt. If I do come back over to the website and I go to free trial, just to let you know, for those of you that already have licensed versions of our software, whether it's standalone, cloud, or network, even though it says free trial, when you download it and install it, it will automatically be the full functioning version. It won't be a trial version. And of course, we break everything up product by product. But for those of you that have bundles, we do have everything kind of an all-in-one location. And if I click on the download button, I just want to point your attention to a couple of options over here. Number one, this download Ideate software bundle. This is great for people that are doing trials of the entire bundle, or maybe it's individual or a couple of users that may not have any IT to help you manage that. So we basically package up all the latest software in this kind of bundled download, so you don't have to pick each individual product. For those of you that are on the IT side or in charge of rolling software out to all your users, we have this Ideate installer. It's a little bit of a different setup because you can add or remove certain MSIs from it and roll out real specific software to people. And I highly encourage you, watch this short video because it goes over everything. So we've really put a lot of time and effort into trying to simplify the way you get a hold of us and also the way you can download and install your software. So just wanted to kind of leave you with that.
Well, and I just wanted to kind of piggyback on that, Sash, is, we talked about Ideate StyleManager, and the new styles that we've added all were a direct result of people asking them for us or for those particular, to manage those particular styles. So
people on this call,
yeah,
people on this call ask for those things. Yeah.
So that's just another, I think it's a great example of showing you how we introduced a product. And then, it was a rock solid, but we listened to customer feedback where you needed some additional tools to be able to manage some of these styles. And we added those and improved, again, directly based on your feedback.
Yeah.
And then,
go ahead, Richard.
Well, and since you were displaying this, Sash, a couple people have asked, and I know this is kind of it's a little bit of a tangent, but it's a good question. Since you were in Revit and you happen to be showing sticky, a number of people asked about multi-page either Word or PDF documents. So my answer was that when you have a multi-page Word or PDF document, you can then specify, like, you want page 1, you can say 1-4, 5, 6, or you could say 1, 7, 9, and it'll bring just those 3 pages in. And then the question was, are they all separate images? The answer is yes, they are, and they can be manipulated. Like exactly what Sash is showing there. You can have any combination, and then when those come in, those can be sort of rearranged as separate stickies, or you can grab all of them and move them all together if you like. So that was, I thought, a great question that a number of people asked about that. So yeah, like let's say that first page, Sash, if you just want to move it off to the right, you can, like, just the fact that you can move that and it's not impacting the other images because they're all coming in. As you saw on the dialogue, even though he selected that at the same time, it brings them all in as, how many did you have? 5 or 6 individual images within the dialogue.
Yep.
So great question.
Yeah, and you can scale it. Notice I even cut this one out of there, Richard. And what's cool is even though I cut it, after the fact, I think it was page 1, we track where, those went. So in this case, you can see over here that it's in this particular view and it's no longer on a sheet. So we actually track all that. If you bring it into a view and want to move them after the fact, no problem. We can handle all of that as well. So, yep. So, and you saw that I was able to specify exactly which sheets I wanted to bring in, and that you can do the same thing with PDFs as well. You can say, I can bring in, if I have a multi-page PDF, I can bring in certain sheets if I want to. So
yeah, and they can actually, both images and schedules can appear on multiple sheets or multiple views. And as Sash said, we'll track that. And so you can look at that little dialogue and say like, oh, this Word document, it appears on these 5 sheets or something, or these 5 views.
Yep, exactly. You can see here, this one's not on a view anymore, it's on a sheet. So we tell you exactly where these reside.
Well, I think we're getting to the top of the hour. Are there any last words you'd like to say, Glennis?
No, I wanted to thank everybody for coming, and I know there is a brief survey as you exit this. This is the first time we're doing this user group. We're very interested in learning if you feel like this was a valuable event today, and also if you'd be willing to speak at a future one, that's always great too. But thank you for your ideas and your participation. It's really, I think, what makes us unique and have really the highest quality is because of people like all of you on the call today. Thank you.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, and be sure to visit us at ideatesoftware.com, where we have literally hundreds of videos, all the help files, and lots of information on individual workflows. So I'll put that plug in there too.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Have a great day.